Welcome to We Hear Her. I am Erin Trenbeth Murray.
And I am Jennifer Bean.
We're here today with another amazing woman who's sharing her story and insights to lessons learned. Hi there, I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and thank you for being here today for the We Hear Her podcast through Women Who Succeed. I am so excited to get to speak today to Dr. Deneece Huftalin, who is the 8th president for the Salt Lake Community College. And she has a remarkable background, and I'm so thrilled to get to talk to her a little bit about her leadership. So first, let me just tell you a little bit about what brought her to this role. And I'm going to begin a little bit with talking about her strategic vision for the college. In her tenure as president, Dr. Hufftalin has launched a college-wide strategic planning cycle, which has produced a brand new vision, mission, and values, including strategic goals for the college. Dr. Hufftalin is leading efforts to strengthen completion rates, transfer pathways, workforce responsiveness, and of course, equity and student access and completion. She encourages an environment of innovation and positive restlessness, challenge staff and faculty to embrace emerging pedagogies such as open educational resources and competency-based education, and to situate Salt Lake Community College as a model for inclusive and transformative education. And for those of you that live in the Salt Lake Valley and beyond in Utah, I'm sure you have seen many of those things come to fruition. And Salt Lake Community College is quite the happening place that's all the buzz. A little bit prior to this, I just want to share with you that she served as the interim president, Vice President of Student Services, Dean of Students, and Director of Academic and Career Advising. And before joining Salt Lake Community College in 1992, Dr. Hufftalin held positions at William Rainey Harper College, Northwestern University, and the University of Utah, Stanford University, and the Institute for Shipboard Education. Her and her husband, Tim, are the parents of 2 sons, Max and Eli. She earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Utah, a master's degree from UCLA, and a doctorate in education, leadership, and policy, also from the University of Utah. So please help me welcome President Hufftalin today.
Thank you.
She said that I could have permission to call her Deneece, which I
Absolutely.
think is super cool that you're willing. Like we said outside, if I had the title president, I would use it at all times.
This is more fun. Just Deneece and Erin speaking.
Do you use it on your kids, though? Do you have your kids ever call you president?
I will tell you that the ringtone that my husband, you know, when you call someone, they set a ringtone to say who's calling. His is that presidential march that they play whenever the president walks in the room.
I love that.
So that's the only time the president really seeps into our
He has a
daily
good sense
home
of
life.
humor.
Yes, he does. So every
That's
now and then
funny.
it'll go off. Like if I text him and I'm still at home, I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh my goodness. What is that? Hail to the chief or something?
Yeah,
I
hail
don't
to
know
the
what-
chief. I love that.
That's great.
One time I went to an event and the name tags are out, and there's the name tag that says Erin Trenbeth Murray's husband.
Oh my! And he loved that, I'm sure.
He loved it. He was like, there you go. So that kind of reminds me, we were
Yes.
talking before.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear a little bit about Tim's engagement, support of you and the family, because this remarkable background that you have professionally, educationally, leadership roles, everything you're asked, every board, including Women Who Succeed, who you're asked to serve on, you have to have an incredibly supportive partner when
Yes.
you have children. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for asking that. Well, I'll start by saying that we got married a little bit later in life, and at least in Utah, it seems later in life. I was 29, he was 27. But
Crazy.
that's not really late, but compared to my friends who were,
Yeah.
getting married right out of high school and such, we were getting married a little later in life. So I had already established a career. I had my master's. I was looking to kind of advance in my career, and he was a little bit. He grown up and studied agriculture. He grew up in Iowa, so farming was his, wheelhouse, and so that's what he started out doing. And then he recognized that that's really not what he wanted to do. So he made a career move, which brought us back to Salt Lake. And I think because of that career move, and his identity wasn't as wrapped up in a career trajectory as mine was.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started to have kids, we realized early on after the second boy that childcare is so hard to find and so expensive that by the time he was working part-time and trying to manage the kids, we were spending everything on childcare. So he just stopped out and became a full-time dad. And that was huge because I went back and got my PhD during that time. Our kids were little during that time, so he was, doing junior achievement in the elementary school and doing all that stuff while I was working. And when I gotten my PhD, my son, I think my youngest was in kindergarten, maybe. And so, we would study at the table together. But I never had to worry about, I got to find a way to pick this kid up and move him to soccer. I never had to navigate all of those things that a lot of working women have to do and dual career couples have to do. So I feel so blessed that way. And he's always been someone that said, you can do it. Like, he has no doubt of what I can do. I have more doubts about what I can do than he does. So he's just and he took a lot of flack for that. I mean, this was in the 90s.
Right.
So not a lot of guys are staying home.
Right.
There's still not a lot of guys talking about staying at home. It's getting better.
Yeah.
But, people at the grocery store would say things to him like, I'm surprised your wife lets you grocery shop. And he's like, oh my gosh, it's a good thing or we wouldn't eat,
We wouldn't eat.
Yeah. He had a flight attendant take our baby away from him once because Max was crying on the plane and Tim was trying to soothe him. He was walking up and down the aisle. And the flight attendant just came and grabbed the baby and started to soothe him. And Tim was like, nobody would ever do that to a mom. You would never take a child out of a mom's. So it's just those little kind of, things that happen to men who have chosen to be that kind of a parent.
Yeah.
That I think are problematic in our society. I think they're still there. I think there's still some kind of stigma. And when you talk about the name tag with your husbands, he was the first man. So when you have a president, you always have a first lady.
Right.
Well, when I became president at the time, I was the only woman president at the time. That's no longer the case. But so all the women partners had a luncheon at Thanksgiving Point. And when he got to the Thanksgiving Point, there was a sign that said First Ladies Luncheon.
Oh,
and
wow.
that's where he was going. And so he just made himself at home. And he has a great sense of humor, so he doesn't care. But it's just that kind of stuff that you take for granted that we have to kind of challenge, I think, a little bit. And he's just great at challenging and
I want to meet him.
doing what he wants to do and not really worrying what other people think. So that's great. And I think it's a great role model for our boys.
I was just going to ask that. I think, I've been pondering and reading quite a bit lately about male allies with women who succeed. And I have two sons, 18 and 22. And two things that I kind of want to unpack here, if I can put them together. One is that what an amazing, unusual experience for your sons to get to have that much bonding time and that amazing, the duration of time with him, with them, with homework and with making dinner and all of that. I'd love to hear more about that. And then I'd also like to know what you think your boys learned by watching you as this powerhouse of a woman in the community, just moving and shaking the Wasatch Front.
Well, I wish, that's a great question. We should ask my boys. I think, I guess they just had such time with him. They have really vivid memories of little episodes in their lives with him, whether it's, he used to ride a bike to school with them in one of those those little stroller tow, I don't know what they're called, but he used to ride them to school that way. And they have great memories of him, in elementary school and junior high being really involved. He was always the soccer coach. He was always with those guys. And so they have really just fun memories of different times in their life with him. I don't know if they would talk about like gender barriers or anything like that. I don't know if that really affected them. It was just
normal for them.
It's a good question to ask them, whether they ever thought that was weird or, if anybody ever wondered about it. I will say in terms of my boys and my career, I just think I think they think it's great. And I think they're very supportive. My oldest son, Max, spoke at my inauguration. And that was really touching and sweet. And, he just talks about being someone that kind of just models you can go for what you want to do in life. You just go for it. If you want to do something, if you want to get a PhD, you go get your PhD. If you want to be a president, you throw your hat in the ring. And I think that kind of, I don't know if it's courage or I don't know what I would call it, just a willingness to try, I think maybe they've seen that and they're proud of that. They make fun of me all the time about, just being powerful and, those
Yeah.
silly things,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the queen and all that
Yes.
stuff. But I think down deep they're probably just proud, and they see that they can accomplish a lot too if they want to do it.
I find as you're talking, just so much is spinning in my head about when my sons and my husband kind of gang up on me in a fun way, but they'll jab a little bit about, well, it's all about Aaron's world, or
Yes.
or
Yep.
the queen is here. So,
Yes.
and I'm like, I'm
Oh,
just
definitely.
trying to eat something before I
Yes.
have to run out the door,
Yeah.
But I know they're joking and teasing, and I feel that sense of warmth and love in the humor and
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
tease as
Yeah.
well. I'm
Yeah.
really close with my boys, and it sounds like you are as
Yeah.
well.
When Eli was born, we knew we were only going to have 2 kids. So when we had the second boy, it was clear now that I was going to be the only woman in the house.
Yeah,
And I
that
made
realization.
some.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, uh-oh. And I think I said something about, okay, well, if I'm going to be the queen, then I need a tiara. And like my husband the next day when I was in the hospital brought me this great plastic tiara, And so every
Perfect.
now and then they pull
A
that out. But
princess. That's cute.
yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because Salt Lake Community College, honestly, I mean, I've lived here my whole life. I've never seen it and heard it the way it is now. It's
Oh.
just it's got such energy and electricity. And I'm grateful for your leadership in our community with so many kids, with another option for adults and
Yep.
for young students to get to go and further their knowledge, further their lifelong learning, pursue a 2-year degree, pursue a 4-year degree, all the options you have. I worry about young women, especially first generation young women. I worry about young women across Utah that may have the fear of there is an inkling of wanting to continue their education after high school, but not sure how to make that leap.
Yeah.
With your extensive education, all that you've done, what guidance or advice could you give to light a fire under some of these young women to just take that step, just to give it a try, just to throw your hat in the ring, like you said?
Yeah. I think, well, first of all, I've never had to navigate college not without a parent that had done it before me. So I think all of my socialization, my mom and dad were both at college. They both went to the U. I heard a lot about their university stories. So going to college was kind of just a natural thing in my family. But I would say this, and that is that I think all young people underestimate their talent and their intellect. I just think there's just something about being young that people kind of dismiss how smart they are. And not in a bad way, but it's just we assign youth, like you haven't really developed yet, you're not that smart yet, you're going to learn all that. And I think that when you're coming out of high school, you're still really young, but you have developed skills. You wouldn't have finished high school if you hadn't developed the skills to think about new ideas, to express yourself. And all that's going to happen in college is that's just going to get easier and easier and better and better. So you already have it. It's not like only some people should go to college. It's that once you get there, you start to recognize and get the feedback. I don't want to disparage K-12, but K-12 is so formulaic. And in college, it's more open, and you are suddenly, it's you managing your identity. It's you managing your emotions. It's you choosing your purpose and what classes you want to learn. It's not structured for you.
Right.
And there's some liberation there. And I think a lot of young people just need to feel that, because I think that energy of that liberation that ignites things on its own. They don't need me. That'll just ignite on their own, because they suddenly realize, you know what? I never knew about that, and I really care about that. Whatever that issue is, or that discipline is, that somehow they get turned on to that. So I would, especially young women, I think, more and more young women are entering college. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
We still have some gaps around bachelor degree attainment. We usually have really close, if not higher percentage, women graduate at the college. But we have a lot of fields that are historically feminine fields, right? Nursing, teaching, social work, those kinds of fields. I worry that young women who are, especially young women that get into a relationship early in life, choose to step away from their education to help finish the partner's education. and then with great intention to come back and finish. But then if a family starts and everything
Sure.
else starts, all that gets pushed away. And we have 40-year-olds, 42-year-olds, 50-year-olds coming back. My husband died.
Mm.
I got divorced. It didn't work out. He was abusive. That never finished. And so their economic options are limited. They're usually great learners because now they really want to learn,
Right.
right? It's on them. They're excited. But it's hard to manage that late in life, you know. So I encourage young women and young men, go through your education, get it done.
Get it done.
Get it done. Go in, explore, get a degree, you know, do internships, really explore and finish. You know, I always say to young people who have a few credits but haven't finished, you know what, 36 credits on your resume doesn't mean anything. I don't care if you have 36 credits. I care whether you have an associate's degree or a certificate in a certain field or a bachelor's degree or a PhD. But you got to have the credential.
Yeah,
And I think you're always going to have that, even in our changing economy, everything. I think you're always going to need some kind of post-secondary credential.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's an IT or it's a specialized field, that the credential is there. The completion, the tenacity to finish.
Yep.
I loved what you were saying early on. I was resonating with me because of my 18-year-old son, and he is a fun kid. So fun. School's not so fun, right?
Yeah.
And started school, and I was so proud. I have been so proud this fall watching him. His resiliency and him navigating and figuring it out. And it just reassured to me, to your point, that college is so much more open.
Yes.
And you pick and choose and you own it and you navigate it. And is that hard? Yeah, it's hard. And then you need help, there's resources. Then you tap into the school resources and you talk to the academic advisors and you go to the tutoring center and you ask your friends and you watch tutorials on YouTube and you figure it out. But Utah being number one in the country with females dropping out after 2 years, it's not good for it's not good for them. It's not good for their families. It's not good for our economy. It's not good for our community. Like we just got to get them over that finish line.
And that it has residual effects, right? So I serve on the Women's Leadership Institute board as well, and we're trying really hard to elevate women in, you know, C-suite areas, in the legislature, in, you know, CEOs. So you can't do that if you don't have an educated workforce, right? And usually if you're going to run for office, not always, a lot of folks have run for office very successfully without a certain kind of degree. But I just think it opens up so many other opportunities for women to influence their communities or legislation or, you know, what we want to prioritize in our budgets or those kinds of things if you finish your education. So
sure. Well, there's so much that we could unpack here with all of your community service and your career. I guess what I'd love to kind of wrap up with towards the end is understanding when I looked at your bio, and I've done a little research on you and what we do, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, you read
good.
that long bio, yes.
It's all good. And yet you every time I have spoken with you, a couple things that have come across to me. The second time that we spoke, you acted like we'd known each other 10 years. You were so warm and engaging and just so down to earth. And I'm like, we need her in Women Who Succeed. How are you finding such a beautiful balance between this calm, personal demeanor that you have, the demands of serving on boards in the community, the time commitments and love to give to your family, and then giving 110% to the community college at the same time?
Well, I don't think, I think I've heard some other women say that you're never really in balance.
Right.
It's just, you know, some weeks are really focused on school and things at home are barely there. To be fair, both my kids are kind of launched right now. They're not at home, and my husband's doing his own thing. So there's not a lot of people at home waiting for me to help, right? Everybody's self-sufficient. But I think you don't ever like balance it perfectly. And quite frankly, I have really good friends and my kids and my husband where, I mean, they hear, they hear what I really want to say. So the calm and, you know, I mean, I have bad days. That's definitely part of it. And you just have to find really trusted people who you can get real with and say, this is so frustrating. And then you sleep on it and, it's better the next day. And it gets better every day after that. So I would just say, you only live once. And just because I'm the president doesn't mean I worry when you have titles like president and CEO and whatever, that it automatically kind of puts a barrier up and people may or may not tell you the truth or they may not act kind of real around you.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to pretend things are all great or that they have to act a certain way around me. I want people to just live their life, be authentic, be real, do their job well, have fun, be a human. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're trying to make the world a better place. We want to have fun. We want to be respected. So let's just all do that and we'll be fine. So those labels and stuff, I think, sometimes get in the way.
Sure.
And sometimes you have to have them. There's places and circumstances where people introduce me as president and that's perfect and that's how it should be. There's formal events I go to where I have to speak, where I really, kind of make it more presidential. But I think in day-to-day living, you just have to, if you want people to work with you and collaborate, you have to be someone that they feel like they can trust and approach and have fun with.
Well, it is an honor, honestly, to get to know you more and more. Every time I was like, oh, great, I get to interview the president. And I like to be respectful. You earned that title. You put a lot of hours into that title and the work you're doing and your ethics and your integrity. It is a privilege to call you the president of the Salt Lake Community College, but I also love that you allow me to call you Deneece.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So thanks for being
You're
here
good at
today.
this. This is your full-time job. Yeah, man. You should move over Oprah. Yeah, move over. You're good. You're so natural. This has been fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. And with that, we will call it a day.
Thank you for taking time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more at womenwhosucceed.org. A big thank you to our sponsor, the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation.